Welcome to Adventure Thinking, an intimate series of live video podcasts that explores the mindset born from challenge, adversity, and living a life of no regrets. I'm Jonesy, your host, and for the past 20 years, I have been lucky to have embarked on some crazy expeditions.
And I'm Lauren, your other host, and I haven't.
And returned transformed, with some pretty epic tales to share.
I'm more of an accidental adventurer.
You just start to question why you're doing it.
Each week, I'll be bringing adventure stories
We'll be bringing?
and mindsets down from the proverbial mountaintop as we dive into the hearts and minds of some of the world's greatest adventurers. These are people that have achieved truly phenomenal undertakings against all odds and have returned better for it. So, do you want to live more adventurously? This is Adventure Thinking.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to, what is it? Episode 20?
20.
Episode 20 of Adventure Thinking. So this is kind of crazy.
Where are we looking? We have a new
Oh
setup.
my gosh,
so
we
we're
have a new
together.
setup. Yeah, we are together.
Yeah,
sit
look,
side by
we
side.
do.
We actually love each other. This is really
Sometimes.
strange sometimes. I'm going to put my hat back on. So welcome to the show.
We've had some tech issues, so
have-
Justin's a little stressed out.
I'm always a little stressed out though. So we just jump straight into it because I think
so.
Otherwise we're just going to be here just going
Well,
around
you have
in
a man
circles.
crush on our next guest, so I might be third wheeling it on the couch. Although I have just been talking to him for the last probably hour while you've been.
Yeah, well, we had some tech issues, so I've been trying to fix it. So thank you very much, Lauren.
It's
But we do have Aleks waiting in the wings right now, and our guest today is Aleksander Gamme. Now, Aleks, I've been looking forward to this one for ages. Excuse the French, but I'm so excited right now. I'm about to wet myself. And the reason why is the guy is just such a bloody dude. He's an absolute legend. He's pretty varied out there in terms of... I can see him in the background. He's laughing right now at my introduction. But Aleks, I first met
Why
Aleks.
do you love Alex?
Why do I love Aleks? Because of his rippling muscles, his lovely curly hair. No, the reason why I love Aleks, it stems from the first time we met. And I actually met him down in Antarctica. And he is... Actually, I wish I could have changed it fast enough. He was actually mooning us just then off screen.
Nice butt. So we just got mooned by Aleksander Gamme. Is that how you say it?
Aleksander Gamme.
Aleksander Gamme.
Gamme. Yeah.
But it goes into the theme. And Alex has picked a perfect theme for the way that he lives his life, which is...
Fun. It's goy. The theme is goy, which is Norwegian for fun. Now, so the story I was going to tell you
Which I
about
love
Aleks. So Aleks he's an explorer, he's an adventurer, he does all sorts of different things, and not just your regular boring things that, you know, all explorers do. They do a big polar trip, they do a big rowing trip, they do a big this trip. Aleks does things a little bit different. So he started off as basically a pro skater in Norway. It was kind of illegal, so it couldn't really be pro. Then he went into skydiving. He was in the Norwegian skydiving team. But we first met him Cas and I first met him in his role as a polar explorer when he was coming along the big bad Norwegian to beat us on this trip that Cas and I were trying to do across the outback. Yeah, evil guy. And so we were racing this Norwegian bloke. And I got to admit, I wanted to hate him. I really did. I didn't like the guy. He was this guy coming out of the woodwork to steal our glory. But then Aleks did something pretty amazing. And he ended up, beating us, basically. But then deciding to wait 3 kilometers short of the finish line to finish this journey with Cas and I. I mean, what kind of person does that? Seriously.
I don't think anyone in history.
No one. I mean, people have tried to emulate that, but I think that just shows the character and the mettle of the guy. And all his expeditions are so much fun. I get so jealous when I see the things he does with Petter Nyquist in particular. Tubtanic, where they put together a raft and went rowing down a river. This penny farthing trip, walking across Nevada, through Vegas. Just, I think I saw something on Norwegian TV where they're on a set of a porn shoot and had lions and tigers and all sorts of stuff happening. Anyway, I'm getting off the track. I want to introduce you to Aleks. by taking you actually to that Antarctic trip for a second, to day 86, when Aleks was coming across his final cache of that journey. And the caches are, you set up some food on the way out and you pick up the food on the return part of the journey. And it's day 86, and this is Aleks finding his cache and finding some surprises along the way.
Se her, ja. Og nå er jeg jævla spent på om jeg har lagt igjen noe mer igjen. Bare grunnrasjon, som det var noe annet som kan spises her. Tenk om jeg hadde lagt igjen noe godteri. Det hadde vært toppers. Er det noe godteri her? Jeg tror ikke det er noe. Men det er alltid lov å håpe. Fyrstikker, enda mer vaselin. Det har jeg for så vidt ikke bruk for. Sinksalve, hva faller jeg la igjen? Det er ganske mye her, altså. Det var tydeligvis bra. Ja! 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 Er den virkelig? Hæ? La jeg igjen det? Det er dobbel pose cheese-doodles. Ja! Ja! Jeg er så sulten. Og resten er vel bare søppel. Ja. Ekstra skje. Pumpe til primus, så har jeg hatt 2 stykker allikevel. Ekstra trakt, den har jeg ikke hatt på nå. Ekstra trekktøv. Hva er det jeg har tenkt, da? Har jeg drevet lagt igjen dette her? Jeg har sikkert tenkt at jeg har prøvd å spart vekt, da. Det er jo ikke mulig. Hæ? Her er Mentos. Her er ost. Hva Jeg har lagt igjen alt her som jeg burde ha lagt igjen på det neste depotet. Ja, herregud. Ja, det var det, da. Nei. Det er det. Hæ? Jeg blir helt gal. Solen er jo halleluja. 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 Halleluja.
Aleks, welcome.
That's a lot of shouting.
Oh man, that's awesome.
A double pack of cheese doodles.
I love watching that. Seriously, I really do. There we go. There's 2 on the screen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while.
Surely you have.
No, I haven't seen it in a while. It's normally at the end of my lectures, but I haven't had very many lectures there lately, so it's good to see it again.
Because the reason why I thought you'd seen it maybe is because isn't Google using that for their ads now or something?
Yeah, it's actually they did. I mean, they contacted me quite recently and asked if they can use it for some launching of Google Pay or something like that. I thought it was a scam or something like trying to fool me up, but I mean, obviously it was the big Google guys wanted to use the video, so it was fun.
I'm surprised cheese doodles haven't gotten you as their chief ambassador.
Well, I mean, it's not like the truth is that I'm not I'm not really fan of cheese doodles, you know. It's like it's just that I brought it along, and it seemed like it was like the main thing on this video, that it was cheese doodles everything was about. But I've never actually loved cheese doodles. I never eat it, like so, and especially not after this, you know. I don't dare going into the stores and pick a cheese doodle and go to the counter and pay for it, you know. It's like, anybody watching me is like, oh, that's the cheese doodle guy, you know, he's eating cheese doodle.
Yeah, you actually probably don't want to
I cannot do
cheese
that.
doodle. I don't think that's a great nickname, cheese doodle. But no, so it's actually Swedish though, isn't it? Is it Norwegian or Swedish? It's Swedish.
I know. I don't know. I think the brand is American, or at least it's called cheese doodle in
Not
in
American.
States, but in Norway it's called ostepop. Is like the Norwegian translation.
Yeah,
So-
I like Osterpop better. Osterpop sounds better than
I've
cheese
never
doodle.
had a cheese doodle. I don't think
Oh,
it's
really?
American.
Okay, well,
Oh, really?
you can actually get cheese doodles. When actually, I have to admit to you. When we were when I was editing the documentary on our journey, and you were very kind to give us all your footage so that we could incorporate your story into it. I remember going, you know what? I want to try cheese doodles. So there was a Swedish store in Sydney, and I ordered cheese doodles, and I sat there inside as like we were like cutting together the documentary, just eating cheese doodles. It was amazing. It's great, and it wasn't as excited as you, but I do like cheese doodles. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But is it the purpose I'm gonna see you now?
What do you
Because
mean?
I don't see you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There you go.
Oh.
There you go. Well, there you go.
Oh, it's much more cozy than I see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel
yeah,
like
no,
talking. Yeah.
Okay.
I
You're seeing
hear this.
yourself.
I hear this.
Hello.
There we go.
All right. There we are.
We've already seen a lot of you so far.
Oh, that's good. It's good to see you in your small cottage.
Very small.
You know, down
Yeah.
under. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna come visit?
Yeah, of course I have to, you know, but you know, these promises are often left, you know, out there somewhere. So I don't want to promise to come, but when I come, I'll just like do it, you know. It's a long way to travel, but I have to see you guys again. And you know, I never been to Tasmania either, so it's a good excuse for thinking about like another small adventure, you know. So either with kids or without kids, it's a long way to bring the kids though.
Yeah, maybe
Many hours on the plane.
If it's a quick trip, maybe just come
Hey.
yourself. It'll be quicker.
You know, we've gone further for a play date. We walked how far out of our way with Morgan on the Outback just for a freaking play date. I mean, there's a lot to be said to have some of the kids playing together so that they'll leave you alone. So you have a 4-year-old, we have a 4-year-old. Let's get that together.
Yeah, let's make it
Yeah,
happen.
that's perfect.
But you do.
All right, it's
yeah.
good talking to
All right,
So,
I'll catch you
welcome.
later. We'll see you next week. It's been great.
you. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
this is
It's
great.
great. It was really good to see you. Thanks for showing your bum to us off screen.
I hope we have that on video so
Sorry
we
about-
can put that up
sorry
for
about that.
everybody to see.
No, that's
It
fine.
was a nice
No,
bottom.
It was
okay.
what are you saying, Lauren?
Well,
I think you're gonna steal my wife. That's okay. That's okay. If it's Alex Gamme,
So-
that's fine by me.
So let's jump into your theme, which I love. One, I love that your theme is fun. Two, I love that it's goy, which is
Goy.
a lot like joy. And there's,
Yeah.
you know, I wonder if that's where the word joy came from.
No, I never heard.
Some
I
derivation.
never thought about that. You know, joy and gøy. But I mean, it's
Gøy.
gøy is spelled with this Norwegian letter with an O with a line across.
Yeah, this
So
one, yeah.
it's instead of o. But
So can you say it for us?
no, it's I like gøy because
Gøy.
you know, it brings out something, you know, childish, and it's you know, like a grown up. I think it's more important than ever to have gøy, to have fun in what you're doing. So I thought it was like a appropriate theme for today actually to talk about.
Do you think that in society we've lost Goi? I'm not saying it.
I
right,
think
but-
we lost a lot of the playing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, and when I look at the youngsters now, I mean, I think I brought it pretty much along up to now, or my age, you know. But I mean, when I look at the youngsters now, many of them they're so ambitious, you know, they're so focused on career and school and work and, you know, this whole normal life. I call it normal life. It's a good life for many people, of course, but it's like, I feel like I feel that like it's mandatory for me to cheer them up, to say like, okay, never forget to play. Do things for the fun of it. Do things only for the fun of it. Sometimes, don't put all these ambitions things into everything. So yeah, I think we've lost a lot, when we grow up. But maybe that is growing up, isn't it?
Do you think the fact that you've retained that, is that a Norwegian thing, or is that an Aleks thing? Is that a cultural thing in Norway, that there's a bit more of that adventurous spirit? I mean, Norwegians are, renowned for your ability and your adventurous history.
Yeah, I mean, Norway is special, and we see that when how we absorb things and our opinions about things, and the Norwegian style, especially when it comes to, the polar legacy, with our history, with Nansen and Amundsen and so on. I mean, we feel that we're on our home ground when it's about like polar things. So polar trips in Norway is not really a big thing. It's quite normal to, people are crossing Greenland, and many people are going to Antarctica. I guess it's maybe about like, I don't know, 20, 50 people have been doing a full long trip to the South Pole or something like that, guided or not guided. So it's like the Norway style is like, go out there but be humble about it. Don't be too, not brag about like doing things. And it's so easy that you get that slap in the face, because there are always people that have done something more ridiculous, more extreme, more risky, more higher, stronger, whatever in Norway. So go out there, have fun, but don't brag too much about it. I think that's the bottom line of our culture, actually. Because winter is normal in Norway. I mean, we have winter every winter. Half of the year is pretty much winter, so people are good at cold climates. So I think that's a lot about it. When you're going skiing in Norway, it's often like you're on the South Pole. I mean, the temperature is pretty much the same. The winter or
Just a
the
normal
conditions
Sunday.
are pretty much the same. I mean, it's pretty much like being back home. So it's not a big thing.
So that's actually quite true, because like trying to get insurance as an Australian to go down to Antarctica and do a trip, it was really hard to get insurance to cover you.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's companies like that, it's like, oh, if you're Swedish, Norwegian, or Danish, they give seriously, they're like Scandinavian countries, they can get the insurance, everyone else can't, and it's just like, well, that's not fair. But it's true.
I don't think Denmark is covered up in that, because the Danish people are not very good skiers. So I mean,
okay, here we go.
but the Norwegians and Swedish, yeah.
Okay, so doing polar trips and skiing are typical Norwegian traits. However, I don't think many Norwegians bring scream masks and have a best friend named Wilson that they go with.
Oh, that's true.
So where does that come?
What happened to you, Aleks?
Were you just going crazy down there, or tell us about your friends that you took along to Antarctica and why?
Yeah, I'll do that, and maybe you have some pictures of it as well. But I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, the whole Antarctica story. That's, of course, it's a long story, and you're definitely a part of it, a big part of it. But you're not the only part of it. I mean, I had some other friends that I brought along, and one of them was, I called Wilson. I mean, this small little toy thing. It was actually, I bought it in a store before I went to Antarctica down in Chile. And it was like a consequence. So I was not worried, but I was thinking a lot about like being all alone down there. And I remember in my preparations, I had this kind of a scoreboard that I have all these checkpoints that am I capable of this? Have I tried this? Am I good enough for this? Do I have this equipment? And do I have several of that equipment? And all of these points were checked. But one of the uncertainties about doing that trip was how am I responding to being all alone for such a long time?
Had you ever done a trip like that before, solo?
No, not that long, but I've been traveling a lot alone, and I've been doing a pretty much like 40 or 50-day trip alone skiing. So I was quite used to it, but this was different, and the level was raised a lot. This was something totally different than I've done before. I've never been to Antarctica before we did that trip, so no, I just like felt a little bit more confidence when I brought these Wilson friends, and
Everyone can
this
see
was
Wilson
just
right
like
now.
this was just like a joke, in the beginning. I thought it was it'd be fun to bring him, and maybe I can take some pictures, and maybe he'll cheer me up a little bit. But I mean, we actually developed a kind of a relationship throughout these 3 months down there. So he was getting more and more important to me throughout the trip. And at the end, I felt that you were a team of two, and we were a team of two. So it was really strange how Wilson turned out to be an important brick in this whole puzzle down there.
And what was being down there? I've heard stories from Justin, but for those that
As I'm crying, I talk about it in bed.
I mean, I know Antarctica is not an easy place to be. So how did this trip go for you in terms of, faring emotionally, given it's not like you were on a holiday. It wasn't it's the most extreme place in the world. Am I right? For those I've never been there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true, but it's definitely. I would say there are worse places to be, but it depends on the conditions and the weather and your mood, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I when people are asking me, sometimes I get this question, it's like, oh yeah, what's your best trip ever? And it's really hard to compare, different adventures, everything from small little family adventures to these big projects you've been working on for a long time. So I have really difficulties like picking and ranking my trips. But I mean, I honestly, I've been digesting this that much, and I have to, I can honestly tell you that the Antarctica trip was one of my most happiest trips ever. And
Wow.
there are many facets of that. There are many stories that brings it up to this first place, I guess. And it's we cannot talk about everything, but I mean, this was the first time I was actually going down trying to do something that was never been done before. And to me, at that time, it was a little bit crazy being that ambitious, because I never been that ambitious. I never been adventuring for breaking records. So this was the really first time I was gonna test myself, comparing to Børge Ausland and all the big polar heroes that I've just like read about and so on. So it seemed a little bit scary, but a little bit of scary is good. It raised the bar, and you get these butterflies. So that was a part of it. I was going out on something really, really exciting. At the same time, I had this confident feeling that I was experienced enough. I was experienced with skiing, cold climates, tenting around and doing long trips. So at the same time, it was this like balance between the challenge and the mastering feeling. And after all, throughout the trip, of course I had ups and downs, like always, but in general, I think it was one of my happiest trips ever, because my mental situation, my mental mood was pretty much up there. I was enjoying myself. There were many beautiful days and there were many rough days, but I think when you manage to pull something out of the tough situation, when you're not like, I mean, when you have this mental what do you say, this when you have this statement that you're waking up with the mindset of you are really gonna embrace the day, whatever Antarctica is gonna throw at you, you are gonna enjoy it and you are gonna ask for more. So I mean, it's a mindset, and that's the important thing. And to me, it was important to have these small, surprises and bring Wilson along. And I had some, I had an iPad with some movies, and I had some fun poems brought back from home, and I had some fun kind of stuff that that just cheered up my day. And that's the strange thing, because when you're a team, or at least two, you can cheer up each other. You can tell a bad joke, and you can expect the other one to laugh at it, and you turn grumpy if he doesn't. But when you're alone, it's harder to bring up the real joy, because you don't have the conversations, you don't have the stories told to you. You have to create the moments yourself. And I think that's a little bit of magic. That is the motivational magic points. And when or if you're getting good at that, you can make a lot of fun out of the most difficult situations. And I think I succeeded very well on that on Antarctica. That's my my print out of the whole trip, that and Wilson was a big part of that, and I told you a little bit. When I woke up in the morning, I was often blaming him for sleeping late. He was oversleeping, and he was lazy in the morning. He wouldn't contribute to making breakfast. So if I was if I had something bad that I needed to come out, if I had needed to yell at someone, or if I was frustrated, he could take it all, and he was just a big smile back. He never confronted me or shouted on me when I was doing stupid things. And it's strange, because you see how the kids are developing relationships into their toys throughout the years. And after a year or two, you cannot just like grab them and take them away. I mean, they'll be crushed. And I had a little bit of that same feeling, actually. Like he was getting important to me, and our conversations were getting important for my my mental health. And when it wasn't that windy, he was sitting there on the sled next to me, so I could turn back and talk a little bit. And in the beginning, it was just like stupid. I just did it maybe for taking a picture, or it's cool. But after all, that was getting into the daily routine. And then after another week, this was getting a little bit important. So he had his, same spot in the tent. And I always asked him how he was doing. And it was so fun, because when you guys called me, we had sat phones, and once in a while we had a chat through the sat phones. And that was so important that we cheered each other up, and giving each other advices. And I remember you knew about Wilson, so I was asking, how are you guys doing? Yeah, we're doing so and quite good, and blah blah blah. And then you were asking, how are you guys doing? You and Wilson. So it was actually, we were becoming a good team. So I remember that, and that felt good. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel, I felt good about that. So
I've got to say, because
Wilson,
it was interesting watching you and Wilson interact, like, as you'd film sequences inside the tent, and you and Wilson would be having conversations. And there was this one I remember where you were having an argument with Wilson, and it was about what you were going to watch for TV that night. And he wanted to watch Faulty Towers or something. Now, towards the end of the trip, because you start to lose it on long trips, was Wilson actually talking to you at the end? Was he actually, did you hear voices?
No, I did. I wasn't actually hearing his voice. I
gotta make sure. I don't know with you.
I was in a way expecting answers. Then that turns into voices. And I guess I remember many of our conversations were getting, in the same patterns. After many days, it's like, so I guess I knew his answers, and he knew my questions. So so yeah, I guess we were getting like, what do you call it, like a grown-up couple, you know,
Yeah.
like
Romance.
married for
Yeah,
40
like a
years.
married
So
couple.
I mean, it's getting into the same thing, you know. But
So
even
is-
though you're very important to each other.
Is,
So
is this something that you do on all of your expeditions? That you bring these little, you said, I wanted to sprinkle these little bits of joy or fun throughout this expedition. And Antarctica is hard. And I know from Justin, he talks about, I don't know if you had to do this, but like even his toothbrushes or, you know, like there was holes in them to try to decrease weight. So it's not I mean,
Yeah.
to pull a sled that's how many kilos?
160.
160, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to put some extra cheese doodles and a blow up doll and a scream mask. And so this isn't, I wouldn't think that Amundsen, Amundsen would be doing this back in the polar days. So what is it? Is this something that you do in all of your expeditions? Is it something that you do in life? Where did you learn this? And was this the first time you've done it?
This is a good question, and it's a whole universe of questions, actually, at least answers. I have to, maybe if I start on the top, I would say life is pretty much about like contrasts. I mean, it's often about, you know, when you're tired, it's nice to relax. I mean, when you're hungry, it's nice to eat, and when you have enough or something, you know, or when you haven't. I mean, if you are gonna love something, you know, live without it for a while, you know, and you'll appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
So I mean, this whole contrast perspective has been a big thing in my life, and I brought that into these adventure things. And when you're you know, learning from other people, you are copying the good things. But as I normally say, like I usually say that, you know, motivational stuff is not like, you cannot copy your mindset and put it into mine, because we're all different, and what works for you would probably not be the perfect or optimal work for or way to do it for me. So I mean, just like copy paste how other people are doing it is a good way, because you get a lot of the good stuff, but you have to put you into the project, and that's probably how I differ from, you know, the polar heroes that I've learned from or read about, you know, either if it's Børge Ausland or Roald Amundsen. And of course, these guys are very, very serious, and they describe what they do, and they break their toothbrush in two to save the weight of it. But to me, I know it's so important to, I know that I need stimuli. I mean, I need something to keep me busy. Otherwise, I'm getting bored. I'm getting probably more bored or faster bored than other people. So I need stimuli to help me, you know, to keep my mental health up. And to bring, you know, some kind of small surprises and some small stupid stuff for myself, it seems like ridiculous. And especially, I would say, like on Antarctica, I probably brought like between 3 or 5 kilos with stupid stuff. Maybe even more. I don't know. But then you have to measure, and this is kind of interesting, because then you have to measure motivation in weight. You know, I mean, I can save myself 5 kilos. I know the whole trip will be easier. I will be faster. I will be lighter. But will I last as long if I don't take these 5 kilos of pure motivational stuff? And that I would say that is the secret on the really, really long trips. If you're on a weekend trip, you can always just make it through the weekend, because you know, like, okay, Sunday evening I'm back at the fireplace. So then I can sit down, drink wine, and have a good time again. So you can force yourself through a lot of stuff because you're almost through.
Yeah.
You're almost there. But you cannot struggle for 3 months. Then you will never make it. So you have to every day find some kind of a joy, find some way to enjoy yourself if you are gonna last for weeks and weeks and weeks or months or month. So I think that is the secret, you know. I'd rather be heavy and having a good time than lighter and faster, and then to risk fighting myself or fighting my mental health or fighting my motivation, because I know how I'm pushing my buttons. But that's probably not the right way for other people to do it. I mean, these are not the buttons that work for, to bring stupid stuff. I mean, it's not so normal. So, but this is the I would say my motivational secret for doing the long trips alone. That's to bring this 5 kilo extra on motivation.
So do you do this because this podcast is all about adventure thinking, so not everybody is going to go to Antarctica, but it's about understanding the mindset of people that do these crazy, ridiculous, impossible things. They don't copy and paste their life, so there's not a lot of examples that you can go for, and to learn kind of these lessons that they can bring back in their challenging times or their times of uncertainty. So do you do this sprinkling joy, or that you need to keep yourself entertained? Do you do this in your normal life when things get hard?
Yeah, I try to, but I think I find it maybe easier to do it on trips, because like in everyday life, like the situation we're in now, we're isolated in different terms here and there all over the world, and that limits our range or what we can do or in terms of activities and people to visit and so on. I mean, this we cannot, plan. This is a new situation for everybody, but it's easier to put this into adventure terms than in everyday terms. I'm maybe not that good, like using these kind of, tricks in everyday life. Oh, I do it sometimes, but I think like when it comes to, either if you're talking about like motivational stuff, leadership, adventure or whatever, I think it's extremely important that you're bringing yourself into how you do things. You have to lead by yourself. You have to use your own personality. You need to use your tools and what is working for you generally into an adventure, even if it's long or not so long or whatever. I mean, you need to shape the adventure the way that it has the opportunity to enjoy. I mean, so to me, it's like maybe bringing stuff, and this is what you see, like Wilson and other stuff I bring on the trips is just like small things, but maybe more important, it's what I listen to, and going to Antarctica, I had some critics, talking about, oh, why do you bring an iPod to Antarctica, and why do you bring I also had a pad watching some movies, It's like, why do you do that? Are you not like going to Antarctica to feel the solitary or to the untouched continent, I mean, that is just so wrong, bringing all this kind of electronics and media stuff down there. It's like, yeah, maybe that is wrong, but that's how I can do it. I would never been able to do the trip in Antarctica if I wasn't listening to audiobooks and podcasts and language courses and history books every single day in Antarctica. I had like maybe 6 to 8 hours of listening to stuff. Then I would have bored myself to death, yeah. And that is so important. And I can state that in a way because like the value of really important stuff you bring along on these trips, you have redundancy, you have 2 things of the really important stuff. You have 2 batteries for your sat phone, you have 2 pairs of bindings or whatever, for the really important. I had 3 iPods. Yeah. That was the only thing I brought 3 pieces of, because I knew that is my most important tool for succeeding on this trip. If I'm out of iPods, I'm out of the Antarctica.
You said that. I remember because we were on the bus to go towards the plane, and you're like, I have 3 iPods. If they all break, I'm calling for rescue. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Brian Cass thinking about breaking his iPod at that stage.
It's pretty funny. I mean, like, it was like so.
Justin's
I want to say, because like everyone is so serious. in Antarctica. And you said before
Yeah.
that you bring yourself on these expeditions. You find what works for you, and that's completely fine to like borrow other people's things. Like try the humor thing if that's what you want to do. Look at the beauty if that's your thing. Try different things and you'll find what works for you. But oh, excuse me, COVID. Oh, jeez.
Don't worry, you can't get COVID.
COVID.
I'll get it. I'll take it for the team.
I was thinking that Cas and I were trying to be switched on and serious because we were pretty out of our elements. We just landed a ski 15 months before we headed down to Antarctica, and we were in.
And did you know that Aleks was coming?
Yeah, okay, so this is the thing I want to talk about here for a second because Aleks, you found us in Punta Arenas as we're all about to fly down, and that's when we found out your plans. We went out and we had a meal or a drink or something like that together, and you're like, I'm doing the same trip as you. And I remember like Cas and I were like so angry, and then you said something, and I didn't know whether you just meant it as a joke, but it really got in my head. You're like, I watched that video you put up on YouTube of you not being able to ski. What are you doing? It's so funny. And like I remember feeling like this small. I was just like, because like we just learned how to ski and we were bad at it still. And then there's Norwegian, obviously, amazing skier. And so Cas and I are in the base camp trying to be all serious and everything. And then there's you. And you're like out of your bag as we're set up in the base camp. All these things start coming out. There's Wilson. I'm like, okay, that's cool. He's brought Wilson. But not only was there Wilson, there was a tent for Wilson. You had another small tent. And that came out. And I think I've got a photo of it. And like this really did my head in. Like, I saw this thing. Sorry, it's going to be so big at the moment. I'm going to show you, Aleks. I'm going to share screens with you so that you can actually see.
Yeah.
So people who are just listening to this, explain Wilson to people who can't see the video.
Sorry, I'm going to, So now you can see at least what we're seeing.
It looks like a kite or like a little blow up.
Wilson's a pumpkin.
I know he's a pumpkin.
Yeah, he's a pumpkin. Yeah, he's a pumpkin. And
ball,
I mean,
it's
the proportions of these pictures, you can't see that, but this is like a miniature tent, made for Wilson.
Wilson's 5 feet tall. I'm joking.
Oh, it's like maybe
So you had a specific
feet.
tent. You had a miniature tent made for your blow up doll. Let me get this straight.
Well, there, that gives it better off. That's another picture of the tent.
But did you?
No,
really?
but this is how the conversation started, because when I had Wilson in his own tent, and this is on the logistic base before we were flying out to start, and already here, he was in his own tent, and I can hear he was talking about like, I like my tent, but of course, I mean, when you're on such a long trip, I cannot put up 2 tents every day. That's just too stupid. So I mean, he needs to go into my tent. But how do you explain that to Wilson? I mean, he wasn't he didn't know anything about expeditions. He had never been in a tent. He thought he was going to have his own tent the whole time. But now he's going into my tent, and
that's what I thought.
I had to tell him that we had to leave your tent behind. You have to live with me. It's like, no. And that's how this conversation thing started. Maybe up in my head, but we talked about it. Then this was the start of it. That's true. And that's about this tent, his own tent.
Okay, so did you have this tent designed?
So I'm gonna blow it up so everyone can see.
For Wilson, did you have
there's Aleks in Wilson's tent, and he's just taking up the whole thing. I mean, honestly.
That's.
I'm just thinking.
No,
I'm just seeing if we're in the background.
Is that you?
No,
is that fat you?
No, that's someone else.
Justin was very fat before this trip.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was too. But I mean, no, this tent was actually, this is the tent they made a couple of models, to have in stores. Because tents takes a lot of place. This is one of my sponsors, Hellsport. They made these tents, and they sent me off. I think I asked for a small tent, that a model like. So it's small, and that was before I bought Wilson. So I'm not sure why I brought this tent, but it was probably because of one of these situations could pop up. I had a small tent.
So I have to ask.
It was perfect,
Did you have make-believe friends as a child?
I can't remember. I don't know. So maybe this is like my grown up,
No, he still
way
still
of
has
doing
made
it.
male
I've
friends.
always dreamt about having such a friend, and now
But like,
I have.
what was your childhood like? What was your childhood like? How did you spend your days as a kid?
Oh, it's pretty. I would say like pretty normal, but I'm the younger one of four.
Hmm.
So I have three older brothers and sisters. So I mean, I was the youngest one. So I mean, I guess I had some, open space. I mean, they have been pushed the limits ahead of me, so I could do pretty much how and what I wanted. But I've always been like active and curious. I think that's the key word here, and that curiosity I brought from I was very young up throughout my whole life. And that curiosity has brought me into, of course, a lot of fun situations, but I think it's really fun to learn new stuff. So I enjoy being a beginner. And I think that's bringing me into this versatile stuff, that I like trying new things and new kind of adventures instead of being the best in one. So I get bored when I'm trying to become a world record breaker, and it's always funner to put some other experiments out into the real world. So this curiosity, I think, is like it's a faith, it's a gift, but it's a faith, because I get like a lot of passion about things that I dig into, and sometimes that is a good thing, and sometimes I could probably spend my time doing more more valuable stuff than playing chess or reading about strange things or things like that. But
But I think
yeah, I was
that's
doing
what
a
you were
lot of
saying.
fun things, and I was enjoying his football, skating, and it's a kind of a normal childhood, I would say.
Were you very regimented? Like, did you have a lot of, were your days very planned out, or did you have a lot of time to kind of make it up and explore? Did you live in a city? Was it how?
No, it's a little bit in between, like in between the city and the countryside. And, at that, we're talking about the 80s. So, I mean, kids were running around, and, nothing was dangerous. And yeah, I think we didn't have that many rules. We were we were making up our own activities and using our creativity to spend our time. So it was we did a lot of. But when I look back at it, I had some very, very strange stuff. I and that was this curiosity bringing me into, I was so busy learning Morse code. You know what I mean, like tapping the it's like, what 10-year-old guy is like spending month taking a certificate in sending and receiving Morse code. And then I spent a lot of time in the libraries, because my dad, when he was going something, he let me off in the library, and I just like found books for everything. So I learned about I was doing yoga, in the mid 80s, 10-year-old boy. Nobody knew what it was, but I was so busy thinking about like, oh wow, this is so exciting. So I couldn't go anywhere, but I went everywhere throughout the books, and I had so much inspiration by the books when I was younger that I didn't take out, until 10 or 20 years later. So yeah, like Steve Jobs is saying, you cannot connect the dots forward, but I mean, when I look back on it, I see how the dots are connected throughout the childhood, throughout the older times, and how I became the person I am today.
So connecting the dots backwards, then are the trips that you've done, I mean, were there seeds for them when you were a child, or is it, you know, a conversation that you and Peter Nyquist, you do a lot of trips with him, you're just chatting one day and you come up with a crazy idea and you just go down the path of doing it? Like, what's the genesis of ideation of a trip for you? Where does that come from? How do you do that?
I've never dreamt about being an expeditionist. Or an explorer or a polar guy or anything like that. I was dreaming about like becoming a pro skater or later a pro skydiver. You know, that was my dream. I wasn't you know, going on these kind of adventures until I was 25. So so I think that's maybe a little part of it as well, because I when I started doing it, I didn't have any ambitions. So I felt I could just like be myself and my honest myself about doing things my way. You know, I wasn't looking too much upon anybody in the game. So I was doing it my way, and yeah, and so I think, but definitely, I mean, throughout some books, and Norway is a you know, the society, the exploring society, or the people are doing fun things in Norway. It's not that big, and so you talk to a lot of people, and I read books, and it's this curiosity again. I would love to combine several things, you know, and I think that, you know, after I become a father, you know, I don't have time to go on these like 3 or 4 months adventures anymore. So we have to shorten it down and do smaller stuff. But I still find it very stimulating, you know, like bringing up the same question: is this possible? You know, could this work? But in a different way. So I think, Liz, this seed from very many of these trips is like, how would this actually turn out to be if we decided to do this? And I love that feeling. I really, really love that feeling. And that could be a weekend, that could be a week, but just try something new. Do it in a different style. Bring your kids or not bring your kids, or doing it, you know, ridiculously. But could we survive this? Could we manage to do it? Is it fun, or do we get hurt? I mean, it's like very simple questions, but it brings up this kind of excitement in trying all this stuff.
Can I ask, where did the idea for Tubtanic come from?
Tubtanic. All right, that was.
And please explain, people. I'll put a photo up, but explain what Tubtanic was all about, because I love the photos for that.
I really don't know how to explain it. Yeah, I'll try. I mean, this is the story behind it is that, you know, this was actually Petter and me. That's our first trip. Yeah, there you have a fun picture, actually. This was our first small little trip after both of us have becoming a father. So our kids, maybe like 2-3 years, and we feel that we're kind of stuck in a different life, and we have to escape in some way. So we decided, like one summer, or I think it was in August, that okay, let's think ahead. Let's do some fun in August, and let's talk to our girlfriends and the mother of the kids, and let's sort that things out, you know. So then we were talking about maybe we'll go to Africa, maybe we'll go to Nepal, maybe we'll have a month of doing something fun. And you know what happens is that, I guess that's often happening, you know, they're like, okay, then he needs to go in kind of a birthday or have some work, and then it was something about me. So this whole like time frame is shrinking. Suddenly we only have a week. And I think it's like less than a week. We have 6 or 5 days. So what should we do then? We can't go on a big adventure. And then we are going further down on the list. And then it's like, yeah, on 2 tubs on this lake. This is the biggest lake in Norway. So let's try to cross it. Let's make this kind of a small little, you know, device or to sit in, and let's try to paddle and sail throughout this lake, which we didn't. It was impossible, but it was 4 days of incredibly a lot of fun. And the whole thing was about like, is this thing, is it gonna float? We didn't even know. It's like we were building this thing for a couple of days, and the building phase was really fun as well. But when we put it out there on the water, I was like, yeah, it's floating. And then like try to step very carefully on, and yeah, it's floating. So this very, very fun, very fun trip. But it was raining a lot, so it's we went completely wet for 4 days.
Yeah, that's what was the budget on a trip like that? Because it looks like a pretty low key budget. You went to the hardware store and just put something together. Because that's the kind of fun that I think I want to do more of.
Yeah, we just like we have a website for a second-hand market. So and then people are giving away their tubs. So I think we got one for free, and then we had to pay another like $20 for the second one, and then we bought some screws and some timber, and we made it all together. Yeah. So it was like a stiff thing, holding together. So first we were thinking about like one tub, but it's like, no, that's too small. I think that was a good thing that we aimed for one tub each. But we had a couple of rules, very, very simple rules, and the whole thing was that we have 1 week. We are gonna try to cover the lake lengthwise. It must be about like 150 kilometers or something like that. Which was quite ambitious. And the rule number 1 is like, when it's not fun anymore, we'll stop. And another rule was that we're not going into the land, just to take a pee or have a dinner. When we're out here, we're out here, and when we have 1 foot on land, it's over.
Okay.
So everything we needed to do, we had to do in the tubs. We had to sleep there, we had to cook there, we had to shit there, we had to, it was, and it's kind of interesting trying to, spend your days in quite small area, and it's not very comfortable down there, I promise you. So, and we were soaked wet, so imagine trying to shit from one of these, and this whole thing, it's so
was this in
unbalanced.
Oslo?
So
was this in Oslo? Were you just in like a little river in the city, or where is this?
Wait,
no,
actually, what
it's actually a huge lake called Mjøsa. So it's not big waves or drift, it's quite still water. We had to do the paddle.
Yeah.
And we had so much headwind, so we were actually going backwards for a lot of the time. So when we do a lot of paddle the one day, we woke up the next day and we were back in the same place again. So it was kind of frustrating. We were not covering ground. But when we were trying to, this whole thing was so unstable. So if one of us was gonna take a shit on one side, the other one has to lean on the other side just perfectly, and if he was like not concentrated, the whole thing was gonna tilt the wrong way. So, and we had so much fun, I guess we have some videos of it actually, Jones, if you want to find something, but it's so interesting and so different and so much adventure for such a low cost and not going anywhere. And I think that's I think micro adventures like this are getting more and more popular because it's more accessible for more people, and it's so easy just to make such a different days, such a different everyday life.
Aleks,
just thinking different.
You said that you and what was your friend's name that went on the tubs with you?
Petter.
You said that you and Petter were just new fathers at this time, and life was you almost felt like you needed to escape. Can you tell us what being a new father was like for you, or how you have this such a curiosity that you have, you know, almost a childlike curiosity, and all of a sudden you're a new father, and that comes with a lot of responsibility, or you know, how was becoming a new father for you, and how did that change this adventurous life, or has it?
I mean, I think I was, how old was I? I think I was about 38, you know, when I become a father. So it's, you know, I've been dreaming about having a family for a long time. And I hoped, and I hoped that day would come. So, and I've also been very busy about thinking about, like, why are you doing things? What's your real motivation, and what are my, like, values in life? And I was quite curious about, like, okay, what's happening when I get some kids? You know, am I gonna hold my set of values? Are they gonna change, or will I find the difficulties in, you know, these contradictions between, like, my adventure life and a family life? So I really, you know, I hoped that my values would change, so I would embrace the family life. And I think I did in many ways, so I could keep out for these long adventures for quite some time, because this was a new adventure. So I think it's really important to, you know, like, sometimes it's definitely right to let go of something that's been important to you, to embrace the new future, embrace the new opportunities, like a family is. But at the same time, you know, in this, like, baby world, you know, you have this kind of restlessness and adventure seeking genes, you know, that is keeping you awake, and it will never disappear. And I've realized that now. So they will never disappear out of my genes, out of my personality. So I have to create my life to be able to do some kind of adventures. But the definition of adventure can be quite different, though. So I don't urge to go down to Antarctica to do 3 more months of pulling a sled, for instance. I feel that I'm quite done. You know, I would rather seek to do some fun things with my family. So my dream has always been to, you know, move a little bit around with the kids or the family, to see the world through their eyes and give them new perspectives about, you know, the bubble we're living in up in Norway. You know, it's not how the world is not the real thing for the whole world. So I would love the kids to see other parts of the world while they're small. And I think that'll give them perspectives. So
you had mentioned that you had seen, or, you know, the world is, kids are so serious nowadays. You know, it's all about achieving and school and kind of following this path, which, you know, I'm surprised, in a way I'm surprised to hear you say that, given your background and being in Norway, because in America, excuse me, Justin and I have both had bronchitis.
Oh, it's COVID. Yeah.
I know. All we know is that it's not COVID, because we have had like 4 tests between us over the past couple of months.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. But it is bronchitis, so excuse us. At least you can't catch it. But what was my point? Oh yeah. So when you have kids and you are coming, you know, when you have them and you see these kids kind of going through this path and being so serious, in America, that is a very real thing. And that's something I've talked about on the show, and I've talked about to Justin. I have this pattern in me around, you know, you have to do something for a purpose, or for career betterment, or to stay on the path. So to do something that is just for the pure sake of joy, or for no reason, just to follow a curiosity, like you said, to do Morse code, you know, like, what's the point of that? I feel like the world is moving in many ways more to that level. How do I pull that question around?
I think I got
there's a sadness in that we're losing that curiosity and that playfulness, even in kids. Can you go into that? Do you, as a parent, how do you avoid that for your kids and for yourself even? Because when you become a parent, I mean, Justin and I felt it, the shoulds of what how you should be living like other people sometimes get even stronger, because all of a sudden you should be doing it for your kids, or you should be living this stable, safe lifestyle. Do you feel that now that you've had kids? What are you doing to keep this curiosity for them and for yourself? Kind of anything within that realm. It's something I'm really curious around, and I know a lot of parents struggle with.
Yeah, and I mean this is definitely one of the subjects that I've not haven't succeeded very well. But I mean our kids are still like quite young. They're 4 and 6 years old, so they spend pretty much all their time playing around. So I think like
They're still in that
one
really
very good
beautiful
trick.
childlike
One
stage.
very excuse me, say again.
Oh, I just said that they're ages that are very, they're very much in that childlike world, which is really beautiful to see, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. When becoming a father, you're getting pulled back to this childish universe. I mean, it seems like even the most like serious and ambitious people are getting childish again when they get to play with kids, and I think that's very a healthy thing. It's like because the kid having kids around that makes you childish and that makes you play because you need to, and I feel that myself. I cannot do all the things when I'm with the kids. I cannot have you need to be fully there and take part in their universe, and that also but they are in their playing universe, and that's what I look so much forward to, is like taking the kids into my small adventure ideas, because I love to open their eyes, and I love to see their trying to reach their opportunity, the potential, even if it's like climbing a little hill or skiing up that or down that hill, or go tenting outside in winter time. We do this small steps at a time, and I think that's a very, very good combination, because it keeps my adventure need sharp. I definitely feel it's an adventure, because I feel the responsibility for keeping the kids safe, because you cannot predict what's coming when you bring 2 kids alone out on a tenting trip. So maybe one of them is gonna get sick, or spill the supper in the sleeping bag, and you just need to change plans, and the whole thing about keeping the kids safe, that's keeping yourself as a parent quite sharp. So I think that's very interesting, taking me and the kids into new kind of situations, and that's fun for them, and it's fun for me, because it's challenging in sometimes, and you shouldn't pull it too far either. So you should, yeah. So I mean, what was your question again?
I think it's more. It's more of this. I think it's this pressure to conform, or to. You mentioned it in the very beginning. Kids these days are starting to be more serious, more directed towards a path that almost everyone is doing. So how, as adults and kids, do we keep this curiosity or joy, throughout life? Because kids are growing up faster than they ever have before with the digital world or whatever. And I think that there is a lot less playing for the sake of playing. Everything's structured or routine. And you don't have these big periods of time to just go to the library and be dropped off for hours. Most kids have a very strict routine. And I think, how do we, I don't know, it's just a conversation around how do you feel like you need to keep up with the Jonesies, not the Joneses, that do you feel like you need to keep up with everybody who's doing the normal thing?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, because I'm definitely splitted person. I have one leg in the adventure world, and I always dreamt about taking my family and move there and have a different parenting everyday life. But then reality comes to you. Our oldest daughter is just started on school, and in Norway it's very strict. You can't just like take the kids out of school going on an adventure for a month or two. Then they lose their right to go to school. So I mean, I find myself squeezed more and more into this normal everyday life, and it's I don't have to be squeezed into it, but the kids are getting into it, and their family is getting into it. So it's I think it's difficult. I would love, my dreams are still out there, but at the same time, everyday life is more about the every day from Monday to Sunday. It's like you cannot keep yourself spending the time dreaming about the future that's maybe is going to happen. So you got to find joy and have fun in your everyday life, even if that's more like a normal life. So I mean, people and humanity, I mean, we're so adjustable. I think it's like, again, back to your mindsets. I would love to try to embrace a more normal life if that is demanded for being a good father. But if I got to choose, not asking the mother of my kids, I would rather spend like half a year in Africa, living on a sheep farm, doing, different kind of stuff together with the kids. It doesn't have to be extreme. It doesn't have to be risky, but it's just like different from this everyday and office life back in Norway. And that's what's, sometimes frustrates me, like I cannot do that. And even though if like, okay, talking to the mom, I could probably have, some understanding going for a 3-month adventure myself, but I don't want to spend that much time away from the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot do it. I mean, I don't want to do it
Yeah, you don't want to
because
miss
so
that
much
adventure.
stuff are happening all the time. I could be at the most 14 days away from the kids. Then I would find myself really struggling with the motivation, I think, in a different way.
Okay, I will come back to this point here because you did miss out on a certain period of time from family over Christmas because you were involved in another expedition of sorts. We'll get into that at the end, I think. But can we make a deal then? How much holidays do the kids get over in Norway? So how much time how big are the holidays over there?
Oh, that's a lot. I mean, if you count throughout the year, but it's got to be. I mean, the summer. It's a long summer for the kids before they're going to school. It's when they're into school. I guess it's about 6 weeks in summertime, and then probably 2-3 weeks the rest of the year. Okay. So it's a long time.
Okay, I have an idea. So can you plan an adventure that we can come over to in Norway, and bring our kids, and you plan that one, and then you come over here, you bring the kids, and we'll plan a week-long adventure over here.
Yeah, that would be perfect, But I have to talk to the mom. I can't. I mean, there's someone else I need to confer to talk about. Yeah, but I mean, definitely. And it's I would say like, when the kids are like 1 and 3 or something, you are a lot more stuck. I mean, you have proven that is wrong, but most people would feel that is not normal, or that they're not expected to do very much adventure or to take these babies out on adventures like you did, which is amazing. But that's another chapter. But I mean, and I felt that it was okay to stay pretty much at home. But now when the kids are getting, out of, the diapers, and they have a good language, they can express themselves, they can walk, they can put on their clothes, they can eat, they can do these normal things. There are fun toys to bring out on adventures, and half of the fun is like see how they react. So I mean, these are like adventure catalyzers. It must be twice as fun going on adventures with small kids. Because just like going out in the forest next door or 5 minutes from here is a small adventure with the kids, because there's something happening all the time.
Yeah.
And now you have all these conversations about like, they think, they're so mixed up. Sometimes they are excited, but in the next minute they can be quite anxious and quite scared, and they want to go home. So you have to go home because you can't push them. So I mean, it's perfect. I mean, I love it. I would love to do a full time, and I think we are actually, we trade off all the time with the kindergarten. I mean, we delivered the kids in the morning, and we go to some kind of what we call work, and then they're having their prime time in the kindergarten, and we are picking them up, and they're already quite hungry, and they're getting exhausted at the end of the day. So I mean, I think we're missing so much out of the good time with the kids, and I would love having just like a year of spending with the kids and doing adventures with the kids, but I haven't succeeded in that.
One of the things,
unfortunately.
maybe one of the things that I helped me, because I'm a very planned person. But Celia, I know it's Celia, your the mom, your kid's mom. She's an adventurer in her own right. I mean, I've heard some crazy stories about like she's a powerhouse, but I was a very considered mom. But I saw this TED Talk where it basically said it was the power of time off. And it was a TED Talk that said basically in, modern day culture, we work our whole life and then we retire to have the time to do what we want to do. But then you're either kind of too old, or, there's no guarantee that you'll get to that point, or something could happen, but we don't utilize that period of time almost for the good throughout our life. So there was this guy who said, I took a year off every 7 years. And within that year off, it recatalyzed my business. It recatalyzed my relationships. It reignited my curiosity. And it basically changed the trajectory of his creativity and what he was doing. And I thought that was a really powerful thought. However you intersperse that, maybe it's, a year off every 7 years, or a month off every 12, or whatever it is. There was something powerful that there is value in taking that time to step out of the box. And then there's value to be in the box. Like Justin knows, I love having a routine and being at home. I wouldn't want to be traveling all the time. So I think embracing that's important as well.
I mean, like I suffer from massive FOMO, and so
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. But I always regret the trips I don't do, I wish I did.
And that can take you out of being present.
It does take me out of being present, but I also know, even though Lauren likes her routine, I know if I implant something in her mind, then she'll want to do it. She'll be like, well, damn it, I don't want to miss out.
Well, I don't want to die wondering. And when I'm 80, I know that it's the things I don't do. You only regret the things you don't do. It's like you only regret the swim you didn't do when the water was cold. You never regret doing it. So I always think about that, and I'm like, oh, damn it, but that's going to be such a hard, so much work, but I don't want to regret it either. So I always say, well, am I going to regret this when I'm 80? No, but let's do it.
But no swinging, yeah?
No swinging.
Okay,
Put the keys in the bowl.
We're not swinging. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I think it's, when you're talking about that, I'm thinking about like, two things actually. I've seen that that talk actually, and I know that like big organizations that are really working about creativity, and they're allowing their staff to leave on a 3-month vacation once in a while to do their dream stuff or creative projects and so on. And it's been more focus on that in working life as well, to leave people off on the creative, personal projects. But I mean, have you read this book about I think it's called like Top 5 Regrets of Dying People, and I think it's written. I just wrote or read the article about it, and there was like a nurse working in the 50s. It's an old book, and she was writing something about like what did people actually regret about at the end of their life. And I think that's worth contemplating a little bit about, because that's when you're actually able to evaluate something. That's when you've lived a whole life. And of course, these are quite, I think it was like in the States in the 50s, so that, the times are probably influencing a little bit of the answers. But I think the number one is like, I regret that I didn't, fulfill more of my dreams. Yeah. I mean, that was the top regret. And I remember another regret was that I didn't allow myself. I regret that I didn't allow myself to be more happy. And that's interesting, it's like you didn't allow yourself to be more happy. What is that about? Is that like you didn't do this, everyday fun, or why weren't you happy? So I think it's there you got it. I was like, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah.
And to express my feelings and to stay in touch with my friends, and I had let myself be happier. But you see, number one, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And when you have this point explained, in more text, it's about like doing your dreams in life, not what. So, I mean, I think it's really important as, parents, when our kids are starting to grow up, like to really cheer them doing what they really want, because we as parents want them to be safe and want them to be happy. But that's not obviously just like following this career stuff and get a safe job. Being happy is definitely a lot about more than having a safe job. Maybe it's good to not have a safe job for the first 10 years and just like follow their dreams and their gut feelings, and support them in if they want to travel a year around the world, because that makes their path genuine. If everybody's just like following the same education, doing the grades and going to the university and apply for jobs, and that's what the mainstream is doing, and that you won't make genuine personalities out of that. You need to do different kind of stuff on the road as well. So I mean, I hope I will be able to support my kids in whatever they want to do, either if it's like it feels frightening to myself or doesn't feel right. I will say, I have to remember who I was or who I am, so you go out, do that thing. But that's the craziest thing I've ever heard, but you do it, try it. I think that's important.
We had a guest on, I'm trying to remember who it was, but I think they said that one of the most powerful things you can do is to live your life to your potential, so that your kids see that. And I think their child had said that to them, said, thank you for living your life to the fullest to show me how to do that. Because if you have a parent that, doesn't do that and is constantly depressed and always thinking about, the life they could have had, rather than to be, fulfilled and to be, their whole self, it's a very different sort of pattern to have as a child. And that's a lesson for me as well. I mean, like, I think at times I forget that and I get trapped. So this is a powerful thing for me to learn and remember. So I appreciate the conversation.
And I think like if you just like if you take one step, out of the ordinary career roads, that'll make you meet like different people. And I often say like life is pretty much the people you meet. I mean, they are the door openers. They are the connections. They are the network. And there's so much. How should I explain it? If I wasn't like taking a right in that crossroad, I wouldn't have met that guy, and I wouldn't get interested in that thing, and I wouldn't have traveled to that place. So I mean, going the road less traveled is always worth the extra pain and extra effort, I would say, because it gives you something that is not maybe valuable when you meet it, but it is valuable when you're looking back on it, because it gives you just like unique potential, unique opportunities. So if you just follow the road expected of you, it's this is a really cool question, and I have so many stories and examples of like how my life turned left or right into the better, because of just like following my dreams or following my gut feelings or doing whatever I wanted at that moment.
So here's a interesting question to bring it back to Antarctica quickly on that, in gut feeling and following who you are. Why did you wait?
Here we go.
Yeah. Now it's like
Because that's not what normally
it's
people
been
do.
years, but I still remember this process about it, and I think like there are different reasons, but the biggest and most important reasons is that our relationship between me and Wilson and Cas and Jonesy, it developed throughout the time we had on the ice. Not that we didn't have that much conversation, but we knew that we were out there, and we managed to in a way being really honest and good about supporting each other. I remember I was in the beginning battling myself a little bit to really wish you the best, because that's when you look at opponents, when you're on the start line, you wish everybody good luck, but you really hope that they're falling and break their legs, so. But this whole process was changing a lot quite soon, and already in the beginning I was honest about it. I hope they have a good time, and I hope that we can make some fun out of the end of this trip, and whatever who is first or last, or so it was you guys that made me wait, because I didn't feel it was just like a weighing of different reasons. I would rather celebrate with you guys, rather than crossing a finish line all alone in the middle of nothing. So that was following my gut feeling, not knowing the consequences of that at that time. But that following my just like what I wanted to do and what I thought was right was actually turning something, a trip into a whole different thing.
It did. With your act of kindness, of sportsmanship, of humility, or whatever you want to call it, that catapulted you into a different league. Like it really did, because like it became less about the adventure, it became more about the character, and people saw that, and this is my take on it. When you released that thing on YouTube showing that clip of you finding your cheese doodles, when you did what you did in that documentary we made, hit sort of worldwide, it showed you out for the person you are, and then all these doors appeared to open to you, and I was so stoked and so happy for you. Now, going back to the start of the trip, I also struggled with wishing you well. Like I did, because I was like, here's this Norwegian bastard that's trying to take our trip away from us. And so it was like, you don't want someone to fail, but you don't want them to succeed necessarily either. Now, I don't think if the first month of that trip hadn't been so hard, if we didn't have so much snow, if we didn't have so many whiteouts, then we probably wouldn't have bonded as much, because when we were talking on the satellite phone, the biggest thing that struck me, because we talked maybe every 2 weeks, you later told me that you had so much credit on your phone that was going to expire that you were just calling everybody.
Not at all.
We'd have these conversations with you, and here's the person that we're trying to compete against, and you were just so open with information. You'd ask us how we're doing, and we didn't lie. We'd just tell you the truth. This is how we're doing, and you're like, oh man, if this is what you're suffering from back home in Oslo, back home in Norway, this is what we do. And I was like really taken aback. Like, you're trying to actively help your competitors. And it was the most beautiful thing that kind of formed over the trip, I've only seen you really, Antarctica and Punta Arenas, Banff in Canada, and in Oslo. And so it's 3 times really. And yet I've got a bond with you that I will always have, and it was because of that act. And it's a beautiful thing.
And Justin says this, I don't know if he's told you this, but he says it a lot to me, and I've heard you say it a lot in presentations. The world record in the end didn't change his life. What changed his life was when you waited, you showed him what true sportsmanship was really about, and it changed the way that you adventured. It changed the way that you perceived the reason for adventuring. And from that, Justin has adventured differently. It wasn't about winning or proving anything. It was really about that shared experience, and that joy. So I mean, it's you talk about your evolution adventure. The big changing point for him was you, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. I know I'm honored by that, but and I hope that act or that thing was that gesture has been influencing or inspiring other people to think about, like, it's not all about like breaking the records. It's I mean, how are you gonna evaluate the trip yourself? I mean, what is success to you? Is it like surviving? Is it crossing the finish line, or is it having doing what you do with your fully integrity or something? It's like when I have to make a very short story about this. I summarize this as, of course, this is one of the trips I felt that I succeeded. I crossed the finish line. I actually, everything went pretty much as planned. And that was cool. We brought some records, and we got some Guinness posters on the walls, and a lot of that was way cool. And skiing back and forth to the South Pole, I'm proud of that. But I mean, this gesture is pretty much what I'm the most proud of, because I managed to break a pattern. I managed to break everybody's expectation about how to do things. And this was me doing it. This wasn't I fulfilled everybody's expectations. So like the expedition wall has been like all about becoming the first for 500 years. And then there's a stupid little curly man from Norway coming and wait for his, that's like a little bit of a game changing thing. And I love that, that's what I love the most. That's finding these twists to do something not so expected. And I wasn't doing it because of, this is cool, because nobody is expecting this. But it's like, I was waiting for my friends out there. Yeah. I mean, I was looking so much forward to celebrating with you guys. I didn't think I was spoiling anything. And we were in a kind of a race, of course, but it was so close. And I really wanted you guys, because you had such a rough time at the end. You did this like 16-hour days, you were really, really pushing it just to get out of the continent in time. And it just like felt perfect when I had taken that decision. And then I tried to call you on the phone to tell you this, that I'll be waiting for you, and just the rest was just like history. The rest was perfect.
It was I mean, it was amazing. I mean, like, seeing you down there, like it was the most perfect end to that journey. And I think that's why, that documentary, I mean, the fact that we were able to make an amazing documentary from that trip that captured that really, really well, it has inspired a lot of people. And I know when I do presentations, and this is a story I've never told you, but I did a presentation for a combination. It was Year 9 school kids, so 15-year-old boys, and their parents, were there. It was generally meant to be the dads and the kids. And so they listen to the presentation, they have breakfast together, and then they go away and they come back and they can talk about it later. And then a year and a half later, I did a presentation for one of the big banks in Sydney. And this guy pulls me aside and he goes, "I've got to say thank you." And I was like, "What for?" And he's like, "Well, the presentation you gave me and the story of Aleks has made a huge impact on my kid. He was there in that crowd a year and a half ago. And it's changed his whole outlook on competition, because he was like one of the most competitive kids. And him, so they've got a very adventurous family. They were doing an adventure race, and it was in pairs. So the dad was with the youngest son, and the eldest son was with the middle son. And those two were just killing it. They were winning. And it comes to the end of the race, and the dad's coming over, and his son, who's hyper competitive, is waiting for dad and the youngest brother with the middle brother, so they could do an Aleks Gamme and cross the line together, because they were like, no, it's better to celebrate together than for one of us to be a winner and someone to be a loser. And it's just, that's because of you. Like, there's this ripple from those actions that is spreading around the world, and that is solely because of what you did. And I think that is freaking cool.
Thanks for telling me that. Like so fun to hear that, and that's why like I couldn't see the consequences of that decision at that time. We were on the ice, and yeah, I know this is this is the right thing to do, but I mean like listening to a story like this 10 years later, and that it's I guess the documentary is still being seen out there some places. So I mean I think there's I'm proud that that could be a little small part of my legacy, or maybe not even a small part, maybe a big part of my legacy. So, as I said, that's the thing I'm most proud of from that trip. Doing what I thought was right for me, not thinking about like being the first to cross the finish line.
I think that's the that's the true power, like you're saying, of understand yourself and bring yourself to whatever you're doing. What for you it was that humor and that joy and that fun in a very serious life or death situation. You were still able to bring that. Or if that's who you are, how do you bring that to an everyday situation at home that might be 9 to 5, which could be equally challenging, or small kids, or COVID, or whatever it is? How do you bring kind of yourself to that situation to actually make it who you are? I think is,
don't mind me, I'm just going to fix something. Sorry.
Really powerful. I did want to say, I wish I had captured this before in our chat before we turned on the camera, Aleks. You kind of summed up a really cool story of when you were in Greenland, where you said you ask yourself a lot, what do you want the most? To do the crossing or to have crossed?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really powerful thought that people could bring to anything that they're about to do. And maybe you can just explain that a little bit, because I'm not doing it justice. But I think it sums up kind of this whole story and the whole, act of bringing your whole self to the process and doing it with joy.
Yeah, I mean, many years ago, actually, before we went to Antarctica, I was guiding these Greenland trips, these Greenland crossings. And these are like amazing trips. I mean, but quite challenging. They're about like three weeks length, about 22 days, depends a little bit on the group. But these are like guided trips that you can sign up for. Yep. And it's I think most people would understand that it's quite important that the group is capable of managing the task and the challenges. So and this is like a phenomenon when things are spreading out. That's like climbing or going to Kilimanjaro. You heard about the neighbor was there, your uncle has been there. You think that, I want to do that too, but you don't necessarily know what the trip is all about. And what you realize as a guide, that you find many people are actually signing up and they don't maybe have the right motivation. They don't have motivation at all. So when I got to get to know people, before I allowed them to sign up for these trips, I ended up with this one single question to ask them. And I asked them to think about it, not answer it right away, but then I answered them, what do you want the most? Is it to really cross Greenland on skis? Or is it to have crossed Greenland? What is most important to you? Is it to talk about it afterwards? Or is it to really put the effort in, to cross Greenland? Because it takes a lot of effort for many, many days. And if you're not like ready for that, you will not be a good contribution to the group. So it was really important, but I think that single questions sums up a very important subject to think about before you do what you do. Do you do what's expected from you? Do you know what, or do you do what you're supposed to do in many people's eyes? Or do you do what your motivation tells you to do, or do you really want to do? I think that's worth contemplating a little bit about, because it's small choices and big choices in life that are affected by your own, values. And if you do too much things that you're not that motivated to do, I think you will lose ground. You will probably make excuses and skip out after a while. So I would say, do we have time to a little story about that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I just I mean, every year I'm reading, the news from the expedition world, even if it's like Antarctica or Himalaya or Arctic or anything like that. But especially in Antarctica, I see this pattern that every year I can see expeditions that are giving up. They're throwing in the blanket, in the towel. Can you say that? We say that in
Throw in the towel.
Norwegian,
I
like
prefer
throwing in the
blanket,
towel.
blanket.
They're giving up because of, and quoting, extreme and normal conditions. That is like, okay, so they have this excuse for giving up, that is, because of the environments or the conditions are abnormally extreme this year. But is it really abnormally extreme when it happens every year? Because I read about, like, okay, expeditions give up because of extreme harsh conditions this year. But that happens every year, so maybe that's the normal conditions. So, but you need a good excuse to give up. And I think that's happening a lot to you when your motivation is not right. You're maybe not doing it because of that it is your dream. Your motivation is not lasting the whole way, and then you're starting to make excuses for yourself, and then it's not far away that you're giving up the whole project. But if you're doing what's really, deep inside you, you don't need motivation, because that's what you do. That's what you love. Have you been thinking about that? I mean, it's like, so the more far out the project or the adventure is from your inner you, the more external motivation you probably need. But the more likely you are to start to make excuses and give up the whole project when the conditions are getting unnormally harsh. Did you understand that? Was that too deep?
Yeah, no, it makes sense, whether that's physical conditions or emotional conditions. I think it's, the question that you're raising for me are you doing it to tick a box, or are you doing it because everyone else is doing it and you're supposed to do it? Or are you doing it because you really are there to have the experience, because it really is aligned with who you are, and it really is a part of, what you want out of your life? And it's funny because you said, like for you, when we were, I think it's right when we started talking, you're like, I'm not afraid to call a trip. If I'm not having fun, then what's the point? And I'll call a trip and go home. But you'll put up with a lot of, obviously, if you said that you were the happiest on any trip in Antarctica, it wasn't because that trip was easy and you were able to pull happiness out of something else. So I think that's funny. Your core value is really fun, because if you're not having it, then you're going to call a trip. But if it's really bad weather, you're not going to call a trip, because you can find fun in any circumstance. And I think that's a huge lesson for life.
Definitely. And I think that's like ability that is I appreciate a lot. That I remember it was extremely important to break that association, or break that binding between a good or a bad weather day and a bad mental day.
Yeah.
It's like, because if you're gonna have a bad day every day, it's bad weather, you're gonna have a bad trip.
Yeah.
And that's often how we see it in everyday life. If the weather is bad, especially in Norway, it's raining or it's snowing or then you don't get this energy out of the day, and you start the day off like, how's the weather today? Oh, it's not so good. Okay, it's gonna be a great day today, But you have to break that. You have to make a good day out of a bad weather day. And I was paying a lot of attention to that before I went. So that's when came back to my iPods. The weather is not gonna define my day, and if it's bad weather, I can just buckle up and put on some good music or good audiobooks and have a good time. So because you're gonna have a lot of bad weather days in Antarctica,
and in life, weather bad weather days.
And in life.
Yeah.
and in life.
There's a couple of things
Definitely.
there. Is like just on the bad weather days. Something that we're trying to teach Morgan. Well, I'm trying to teach Morgan in particular is that your skin's waterproof. So, because like we go out when it's raining and she gets wet and she's like, "It's okay, my skin's waterproof," and I love that. I love that. So I'm trying to teach her these little things that I wish I had as a kid. But
one of my sayings that we say a lot, or I say to myself a lot, and she's starting to pick it up, is it's not good, it's not bad, it just is.
Hey, that's my saying.
That's my saying.
That's my saying.
I taught you that.
No, you did not teach me that.
I 100%
did. No, that was my saying in the cabin. Oh no. 100%. I got that. No, stop. So I got that from Ben Barron. We had a sit-down session. He was walking me through meditation.
I think it's a famous quote.
2007.
It's a famous quote from like
I didn't steal it from
the Dalai
you.
Lama or Buddha or something.
It probably is a Buddhist quote. Yeah, it's not good. It's not bad. It just is.
Because if you okay, so the point, whoever had it first, or maybe we both had it, and that's why it works. But it's not good. It's not bad. It just is. It's like if you attach a good or bad label, then that will follow on itself, versus maybe you didn't get that job. Well, who's to say if that's good or bad? If you got the job, you might have been very unhappy or done something you shouldn't have, but because that door closed, well, it just is, and it could lead you. It's kind of like you were saying with Steve Jobs. It's hard to, see kind of how the dots are connected until you're looking in the rearview mirror. So it's having some faith around breaking that pattern, and trusting too.
Oh, that's true.
But it was my saying.
Whatever. Here we go. Stealing stuff from the Dalai Lama, Lauren. Jeez.
I didn't say I made it up.
You're low.
You said Ben Barron made it up.
I'm just saying that you shouldn't claim it.
It's a good one.
No, so I just want to just bring back to the start that question, which was around: do you want to cross Greenland or to have crossed Greenland? And I let's not mention any names, but there was someone. Remember, down in Antarctica, there was another Norwegian who was doing a trip.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there was another Norwegian who was doing
last year.
No. This is when we were down there.
Oh.
So when we went down there, that was 2011, 2012, which was the anniversary of the centenary of Amundsen and Scott's race. And so there was another Norwegian whose plan was do a fast one-way trip to the South Pole and get out in time to do media in Norway before the official date, which is what, December 12th or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And,
I don't recall actually.
and so we started the trip roughly at the same time, everyone, and we did have bad weather. I mean, we had a lot of snow, and I don't think we were expecting that much snow. And we had 2 weeks worth of whiteout straight, and we had 1.5 feet of snow. Yeah, which is not normal, and it actually isn't normal. But we kept going. But I remember the other Norwegian bloke, because like we'd ask ALE which is the company that takes care of you down there, just to make sure that they know where you are. You call in every day to do a sked, and we'd ask, "Oh, where's XYZ?" And he's like, "Oh, he's still stationary." I'm like, "Okay," and he took the approach of waiting for the whiteout to clear because he didn't want to walk in the whiteout, and so he was up to like 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then he was like, "Oh, I don't have time now to do my trip." So he went back to the start point because he was a day out, and then got an airlift to the middle of Antarctica, like half the distance, and then had another issue along the way after about 250 kilometers, and then got evacuated. And I remember you and I talking about this afterwards, and you're like, "Oh, he mustn't have been Norwegian. He must have been Swedish."
Yeah, I didn't know him, and I haven't been in contact with him afterwards. And I think he didn't do very many trips after that. So maybe he had some kind of reality check what the polar trips were all about. But I mean, he could have been unfortunate, but for sure he had some different kind of motivation for doing what he was doing. But I think that is important. Like, okay, if you are if you stop because of the weather, and it's not very much good motivation staying in the tent, that deteriorates you. It's destroys you after some days, So I mean, my mantra was that, like, okay, whatever conditions, go out there and do something. It doesn't matter if you don't cover very much distance. Some days we just covered a couple of kilometers. God damn it! I mean, it was hopeless. It was too much snow. But then I just had to, make the fun out of it. I mean, just to see how ridiculous the whole thing was. We had a pace on 0.5 kilometers an hour or something. It was ridiculous, but at least you did what you could have done out of the day. And it's so important for the motivation instead of staying inside your tent, because then you have done everything you could have done for that day, and you can come inside and you can have dinner with a good confidence or with a good consciousness.
Yeah.
And things will clear up. But I remember that it took days and days and days before we could see the sun again.
Yeah.
And it was a very rough start, and all of us were so far behind schedule that I wasn't even thinking about getting all the way to the end. It wasn't. I mean, it was almost impossible with that first 14 days. It was like. Yeah.
Well, if that had been your only motivation is to just get to the end and get the record, you probably would have given up, because if it was impossible at that start and that was the only reason for being down there was winning or crossing the line, then you wouldn't have stuck it out, most likely.
Yeah, and I think it was ultimately because we went through that. I don't think Cas and I would have finished that journey if we hadn't gone through the soft snow at the start and the whiteouts, and if there wasn't you out there as well. Because in a weird way, we were able to mark off each other to a degree. Like we're taking energy from each other, but also there's someone else out there and they're pressing on. There's that thought pattern. It's like if you're out there and you're alone and you're doing a trip like that, then you could negativity could probably come in. Easier. But I definitely think that really helps, and that's a spirit of collaboration.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it's so fun talking to you. There's so much memories coming back. I haven't been thinking about a lot of this for a long time, and it's so fun to go back to that trip and have a review.
We haven't even started on the 2013 Banff Mountain Film Festival memories.
Why don't we?
Or Oslo 2015.
Well, that's true. Oh, maybe have to share that for a later time.
I think so.
Yeah, we'll have to have you come back on. We were saying we'll send you a bottle of Tasmania wine, and we'll have to share a bottle of wine together the next time and have you on. And...
So we haven't touched we haven't touched the surface of half the stories that Aleks wanted to jump into. I mean, there was stuff about. I really wanted to jump into the Las Vegas trip he did, because there's epic photos. I've got them, and actually I gotta show one photo. This is a teaser. So Lauren, you keep talking whilst I pull up this one photo, because it is hilarious.
Do you want me to do a little?
You do a sum up.
Do you want me to do a little sum up, and then I always try to
ask the questions, and then I'll show this.
Okay, so that we try to bring kind of all this stuff that you learned out on the proverbial mountaintop into everyday life and the things that we can take away. So I will endeavor to do that. But yes, it's just a start, and it would be great if we could have you back, if you're willing to come back onto the couch with us. Maybe in person, maybe with the kids, who knows.
All right.
But I'd say a couple of things that you were talking about is, I mean, I think that what you ended on is probably in my head, which is what do you want the most, to do the crossing or to have crossed? And do you want to tick the box, or do you want to kind of be fully immersed in the experience? I think is a really good one whenever you're facing a big life decision. Are you doing it for, your own reasons and bringing yourself to the table? I think you said, create those moments of fun and joy and okay, help us say the word yay.
Gay. Yeah, very good. You're getting there.
Okay.
Good job.
Create those moments of gay yourself and sprinkle magic, even in the toughest times or the most mundane times, whether that's the toughest times in Antarctica or the most mundane times sometimes in those early points of parenthood when you feel trapped. How do you bring those joyful moments and create them yourself, I think is worth remembering. Life is about contrasts, you said. I really liked that. You know, without the dark, there is no light. Without the light, there is no dark. If you really love something, live without it a while so you can appreciate that is a great way to live. Don't copy and paste and live that kind of copy and paste and repeat life. Live a life that really is to your own, in your own direction, and pave your own path. I liked this little quote. Can you measure motivation in weight? You know, yes, you took 5 kilos of fun effectively, but did those 5 kilos get you there? You know, it might not have been food or whatever, you know, the ski poles or the absolute necessities, but ultimately to you, it was a necessity that you feel like had more value than anything else. So I thought that was, you know, can you measure motivation in weight, and what is, you know, what is the weight that you're worth taking in your own life, in everyday life, and you know, what's important to you to take in your quote unquote sled. Yeah, let's see. Every day I've enjoyed. Oh yeah, curiosity, I think, was a theme that came up a lot. How do you, you know, you seem to always be curious as a child and to follow those things that probably didn't have a purpose. You know, if you want a really adventurous kid, make sure that they're doing Morse code at 10. We learned that. Spending months doing Morse code at 10, I think, should be in every bucket list. If you haven't learned Morse code, you know, learn it now. Enjoy being a beginner, I think, was a really cool thing, because I struggle actually. As you get older, we're supposed to be experts or know-it-all. And sometimes it's humiliating to, you know, fall over or to not have the answers. And I think finding joy in that beginner mindset and that curious mindset is something you do really well, and obviously has boded very well for you. And yeah, you said something that where life, the time frame seems to be shrinking, you know, like before you had 3 months and now you're trying to fit things into a week. But the most important thing, like the bathtub, was that it was memorable. And I really like these. I'm going to call these your bathtub rules, because you said when we were out there, we had these rules. And I think these are very important for life. So your rule 1 was, when it's not fun anymore, we won't do it. So we'll call it a day when it's not fun anymore. So I think that's a really good rule for life. Number 2 is, when we're out there, we're fully on the tubs and we're fully present. So whatever you're doing, be present in that moment, and don't don't have your mindset somewhere else thinking, be present in the moment. So I think your bathtub rules can be very effective, not only when
even if you're shitting, you're present, you know.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
You don't go anywhere to.
Yeah, your bathtub rules and shitting in your bathtub, you know, you can take those into your everyday life. You don't have to be on a lake in Norway or pooping off the side of a tub. The other one was oh yeah, and then the whole weather analogy, which I think is interesting. Like let's call it a weather day, could be any bad thing that happens or any challenging situation. And for you, your motto is make a good day out of a bad weather day, and break that pattern that a bad weather day means a bad day. And don't stay inside your tent. Go out there and just do something, and things will clear up. So I think that all of those weather analogies are very beautiful for everyday life.
I mean, what a summary!
I know, this is so good.
This is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. You know, it's like, how that is amazing work. Thanks for that. I mean, that is clearing up the whole conversation. In you know, you make me seem wise. You know,
like you are wise.
Yeah. I feel good after this summary. You know, no, it's true, and it's well summarized, very well summarized, and I hope that. Some of you out there, you know, can find some inspiration and wisdom in some of my advices and experiences.
And I love that it's not perfect. You're still struggling with how to find your balance through life. And I know we're struggling with it. It's not to say that everything's perfect. So thank you for your honesty about, you know, finding this new balance within parenthood and within this weird world of COVID and all of that. So it's been a pleasure chatting with you, but before you go, we do have some questions.
Couple of questions.
All right.
You kind of answered most of them, actually. Like, one of them was like, at what point did you decide to wait for us? And I think that kind of came through in some of your storytelling. But one, and the other one you kind of touched on as well, but I'll ask you again, because then I'll ask you a follow-up question to that. Has having kids changed your priorities in regards to long trips? And you had said it had, so...
that actually was to my question. You had said you wanted to clarify your values, and when you had kids, you really were questioning those. What were your values? You never told us. My question was, what were those values? And yes, have they changed since you've had kids?
My values were a lot about like putting my curiosity into all kind of different adventures and make a living out of adventures. That was my perfect life, and that was my goal, and that was how I was living my life and my values. But I mean, family life, has quite some stronger values. It's about love and dedication and relations and kids and the really important things in life. So, I haven't found it difficult to change values into, appreciating family life, but it's more complex. It's more difficult finding the balance with both adventures and families. And I'm still struggling on that. And I think I will be doing that for the rest of my life, actually, to be honest. So it's more about acceptance of that challenge, I think. So I have a set of values that is combined between, the adventure and the curiosity of adventures, and my family life, my kids, and my love to them.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, one of the follow-up questions, and sorry, it feels so mundane asking it now after such a poignant answer, is that what do you see a big trip on the horizon though for you? Do you see anything that you want to do that you think you can get that month away to do without compromising on family?
Yeah, I see that. But I would love to bring the family.
Okay.
I would love to bring the family. That has been my first priority. But I don't have any big project in mind that I find reasonable or that there are big chances of doing it right now.
Yeah.
So it's more about the small stuff.
Okay.
And I probably will do some adventure stuff, but I'll probably do it alone without the kids. And then it can be a little more rougher.
Yeah, true. It has to be. Okay, so another question was, why did you leave your spare pump for your fuel stove in your first cache?
I don't know. Did you see it in the movie?
Yeah.
In the film? Yeah. I guess I had too many.
But I think there was a comment along the lines of because I just watched it and I thought it was an astute question, but it was just like,
oh yeah,
he's like, you're like, you even said a comment, it's like, oh, that's where it is, or I did have two in the end, so why did you pack that in your first cache?
Oh, that's true. But there's the whole story about that when I'm finding all these goodies. I when I'm there, it's 3 months since I left this cache.
Yeah, true.
So I didn't remember exactly what I left behind, and I've probably been there, and felt that the sled is so heavy that I'm trying to leave as much behind as possible. So that's why I left more goodies than I actually remembered that I left behind. And I had everything strict, written down what was in the different places. But this was not a planned cache. This was just like something I was maybe having a weather day or a half day, and I had to leave something behind. So I was probably a little bit surprised by several things that I actually dared to leave behind at that time. But maybe it was a little bit kind of a desperation. I don't know. I don't really know, but you see that I'm quite surprised about a lot of things I left behind.
Unbelievably, yeah. No, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So, and then there was another question. Some guy says, "Are you single? Is he single?"
Some guy asked.
Some guy asked it.
Some guy named.
Some guy asked about that.
Yeah. Was that you, Justin?
Yeah, it was a guy. Okay. Yeah, I'm single at the moment. So yeah, I mean,
It was me.
feel free.
It was me. Okay, I'll come over to Oslo. Just wait for this COVID thing to disappear.
Just asking for a friend.
Very fun. Yeah, very. Asking for a friend.
This
Yeah.
is the second last.
So, ladies or men, yes, he is single.
Second last question. And there's a photo to go with it.
All right.
Is
I'm excited. What's coming now?
Oh, God.
What?
sorry.
What is it? Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I'll switch the camera so you can actually see. Well, here we
Yeah.
go. Well, sorry, there we
Let
go.
me explain it to you. You have a blow up woman or man
Ah,
with big hairy boobies. Are those hairy boobies?
Oh, that's amazing. I love that picture. And yeah, I wasn't alone. People criticized me after the trip. You were not alone. You had Wilson and you had this inflatable girl as well. You were a threesome. But I mean, this is Christmas Day on the pole, and I had brought some gifts and some small stuff from back home, and there was like a good friend of mine coming with this kind of a heavy gift, and I was thinking like, I'm sorry, I can't bring that along, I'm gonna pull this thing, for several months, and it's too heavy, it's too big. But he says, like, please bring it. I'm sure you're gonna need it. I'm sure you'll be happy. And I was like, okay, never mind. And I knew I needed some surprises, and I love these gifts and small greetings from back home, that you can wait for a month or two. So I actually waited with all these small gifts, and it was Christmas Day, and I was at the pole, so I was half the way. So it was like a perfect evening for like wrapping small gifts and so on. And then it comes to this gift, and I remember I open this thing and I find it's a lot of plastic, and I was just like, I can feel that I'm getting furious. He's been like, making fun out of me, or like sending me off with some kind of, some kind of swimming aid or inflatable, what stupid stuff that I don't need down there. But then I was starting to, inflate the thing, and then it turns out that it's like some good company. So I find myself imagining that surreal moment. I'm sitting alone in my tent at the South Pole, and I inflate this woman, and Wilson is shocked. I mean, he doesn't know what this is, and he doesn't know what needs are. So I'm just like, hell yeah, this is different. I'm sure this is another first for a polar thing down here. And I'm sitting there and celebrating Christmas Eve with my two friends, and it's just surreal. And I have another picture of her the next day. I mean, she was not getting too much company that night. I have to admit that. I wasn't in the mood. Yeah, she was actually punctured.
She's
but
delayed.
It wasn't my fault. I thought, yeah, that's her. And I had to decide, what to do the next. What to do with her? I mean, it's like, am I gonna bring her all the way back? And it looked kind of stupid, pulling a sled with her, on it. Well, a little bit of fun as well. But I decided to leave her at the station. I mean, I'm sure there were some scientists picking her up. I don't know. But what a surprise, and what a fun moment. I loved it. It's just what I needed. Just what I needed. Not to explain in further details.
Seriously, it's awesome. I mean, like, I'm sure Wilson punctured it because he was probably
I'm sure
jealous.
Wilson did the puncturing.
It wasn't me.
Okay, well, so the last question was, we asked this to all our guests. We are going to get you back on because there's some other topics we didn't talk about that we have to talk about. But who would you want to see in your seat right now? Who would you want to hear from? Who's another adventure thinker that we should actually get on the show?
Oh, right. I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, oh, what direction to go? Are you talking to the dead people as well?
We can
We
hold a
haven't yet.
seance. We can try.
Because I find most interesting people are dead.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, would be.
I don't think they have.
No, I
I don't think they
guess
have
that would
Skype.
not
They
be
don't have
such a
Skype.
good podcast. So, well, I mean, there are some fun and interesting people in Norway. I mean, and we are. Last year, I was actually so lucky to go up to the Arctic Ocean to be a small little part of Berge Ausland's. I say final big trip because he says it himself. This is his really big final crossing of the Arctic Ocean. So it's a long story to start on, but I was lucky to be asked to go up and give him a little bit of a hand to go into the ice and meet him. So maybe you should talk to Børge Ausland. Actually, he's a great guy with very. I enjoy his thoughts and philosophies about living his life, and he has a tremendous resume with trips and expeditions and thoughts and philosophies. So yeah, maybe that's my recommendation
He's amazing. Like,
for the next talk.
In terms of I suppose the polar community and world. I mean, like, you don't get much higher than Borge. I mean, so that'd be phenomenal. And I'd probably be a little bit more serious because wow, I'd be intimidated. He's phenomenal.
Maybe we should bring your blow up doll or Wilson.
I don't think he'd be mooning us.
Where's Wilson? Maybe Wilson could come and sit here. Right. We haven't told us where
No,
Wilson went. Should we save that for the next talk?
Should we save it for the next one?
Yeah.
I think we save that for
Yeah,
the next one.
Where's Wilson now?
But,
we'll kick
like,
that
yeah,
up.
we'd love to. I mean, like, if you think it'd be appropriate to introduce us to Borge, that'd be amazing. Phenomenal trip that those guys did, him and Mike Horn. You were stuck up in the ice for a long period of time after that because the icebreaker that you came up to meet them in got stuck in the ice for how long?
About 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Altogether.
Miss Christmas.
So very interesting and an amazing journey, amazing adventure. Not planned for my sake, in any ways, but it was like, we just go up there and try to help some friends. And if you get to talk to Berge, it would be nice to follow up with Mike Horn after that, because there's such a different personalities. So they have different perspectives about a lot of subjects, and I actually got to make podcast myself with both of them up there on the ice or on the boat, and it's really fun talking to both of them because they have so much in common, but they're so different personalities.
Yeah, no. I absolutely love it. They're phenomenal people, like crazy. So much respect for them, and I admire them. And I have a man crush on them in a different way to you.
And I love, and it'll be fun to explore the Norwegian. That was one thing I left off my list, how you said in Norway, somebody else has always done something bigger or better, so don't worry about it. Don't take yourself too seriously and live a bit humbly. And I think, there's something in there given how much you Norwegians do. So it would be fun to explore that.
It'd be utterly phenomenal.
Further.
We will wrap it up, I think, now. One thing I will just leave everyone with is I said that I was going to show them a couple of photos just because this trip is just epic. I've got to do it.
Doing?
I mean, like, honestly,
What were you doing in Vegas? Pulling a sled to Vegas? From where?
Short story. We the reason why we went on this story was we did an attempt on Broad Peak in Karakoram in Pakistan the year earlier. I think this was in 2011, and I remember we had this moment up there in the dark when we were having not a very good time. Petter had a lot of he was bringing his flea circus around. He had attacked by fleas, and I was sick. My stomach was sick, and we were saying, like, okay, on our next journey we'll be sure to go somewhere where we have everything that we don't have now. I mean, we will have good food, we will have it's gonna be warm. It's gonna be a lot of party, a lot of girls, a lot of people, a lot of fun, and a lot of booze, and a lot of everything that we didn't have at that moment. And there's just one answer to that question, and that was Vegas. So we brought our pulks and we crossed Vegas from south to north, and it was so much fun. I could talk for hours for just that trip, but the fun part, the serious part was that we got to know the people living on the street, because Vegas is a circus. You're only seeing the bright side or the light side of life of the Vegas. Las Vegas, but yeah, and but we lived on the street, and we got to know the people that are living on the street, and they showed us the dark side of Las Vegas as well. So that was really nice. So it wasn't just that fun,
No. There's some photos of actually, because you lived underneath Vegas, where all the homeless people lived, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pull up that a couple of those photos, because like that's the side of Vegas that you don't see, the sleeping on the streets and I think
it's the side of America you don't see often.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing it a bit more and more.
Yeah, for example, like here.
But yeah, I mean, we were sleeping on the street and trying to just like get some sleep, but it's so busy and noisy everywhere. It's really hard. We really struggled to get some sleep, and it was in July in Nevada. It's really hot in the days. But there you can see on the first picture, you can actually see the Vegas sign when you're entering the city, and you can see that this is like some kind of a anti-flooding tunnel systems that are going throughout underneath the whole city, and a lot of people are living there. It's a whole community down there for the people that have missed out of lost everything in gambling or so I remember these two blokes that we got to know very well. This is Mike and another one, I can't really recall the other one's name, but we spent some days with them, and they told us their story about their version of Las Vegas life, and it was kind of emotional and special, and this was the seed for Petter Nyquist to turn another direction of his career. He spent like 52 days on the street in Oslo and made like an amazing like TV series about it. So so
I was actually going to ask.
That's how like you bump it.
Sorry.
Excuse me?
Sorry, please. I was just going to say I'd love to get Petter on one day, because he's amazing.
Yeah, and that's how when you do stupid and strange things in life, you bump into new ideas and new inspiration that takes probably and sometimes your whole life in a different direction. And that happened to Petter on Vegas. Actually, it was just like a fun and silly trip, but that changed his whole life when we got to know these people living on the street, and he wanted to put focus on that when he was working on his TV projects in the future. So now that's basically what he's doing. He's showing more of this charity and making a life better for a lot of people, TV productions. So it's amazing how things can turn out from trips like this.
That's what you were just saying. Yeah, it's amazing the people that you meet. Yeah, you wouldn't have thought that it would change his life in that perspective, especially from the Vegas route. But that was exactly what you're saying. It's it's that sliding door moment, that it's the people that you meet that can change your life forever.
Aleks, how can people get in contact with you?
You can put my email somewhere, or they can find me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Call me.
If you're single,
there's so many,
Is
many ways now.
Is your website still gamme.no, or is that not active at the moment?
No. It's down at the moment. So I'm currently thinking about making a new one. So I'm trying to just make myself a little bit interesting, like hiding from the surface.
Okay. All right. Well, no, that makes sense. So we'll put in the show notes your links to your Facebook, your Instagram. It's right there underneath you right now, Aleksander Gamme. And mate, seriously, I want to come out. I want to give you a virtual hug.
I know, big group hug.
Oh, thank you so much.
This was
it's
fun.
It's been too long.
It's been way too long. And we're gonna just stay there for a second, and we're gonna say goodbye to everybody else. And I might just play that little video of Titanic in the background as we wrap up the show. But before,
thank you for sharing the
so
evening
much,
with us.
Alexander
This
Gamme.
has been, my cheeks hurt from laughing, so I appreciate it.
It's been really.
You know, it's going to be a good
Goy?
podcast. Yeah,
Gay?
gay,
Gay?
gay.
Gay. Yeah.
Gay.
Goy.
Yeah, it's been
Goy.
amazing.
You know,
It's been amazing talking to you again. I miss you.
I miss you too. So stay there.
Hey guys, I'm here too.
Oh yeah, hi Lauren. Shh, don't worry about her. Don't worry about it. It's just us, Alex. Okay, so stay there, Alex. Wow, like serious. Oh my gosh, it's this camera over here. That's a bit strange. That shouldn't be right.
You know, it's going to be a good podcast when you start off being mooned.
Oh yeah,
By
yeah.
Aleksander
Yeah, I
Gamme.
just wish I had that recorded because I didn't have that recorded. So
Do it again.
And I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
I hope.
Obviously.
there's Alex in the background. He's got nothing to hide. Literally nothing to hide. It's anyway.
Thank you for joining us for our third or fourth pre-recorded.
Yeah, this is our, I think, third pre-recorded show.
Yeah.
Just hard with the timelines, and also just had some tech issues and kids and all that sort of stuff. But if you've got any thoughts on who we should have, send us an email, send us a note at Justin R. Jonesy, at Follow the Jonesies, adventurethinking.com/live. That's where you can jump onto all the other podcasts and videos.
And
This
sign
week,
up.
I am actually turning it into a proper podcast, so you can listen to it on Apple and stuff like that starting probably next week, and I'll be releasing them one by one, and Spotify. And so I said I was going to do it, so we will say goodbye to everyone by just showing a little bit of Titanic, the project that Alex did in a bathtub across Lake... How do you say it? Mjosa? No, Mjøsimau or something like that? Anyway.
Mjøsa.
Okay. Alright, so I will... There we go.
Se på det her. Ja, det er jo. Vi passerer nærme, men ikke alt for nærme liksom Mjøskanten. Nå koser vi.
Der kan være, gitt.